Everyone is telling you the same story right now. They'll tell you Lewis Hamilton won in Barcelona, that Ferrari finally turned the corner, and that at 41 years old he is suddenly back in a world championship fight nobody thought he could reach. But the thing that could actually hand Hamilton this title has almost nothing to do with his car getting faster. It's something buried inside a Mercedes, a part that fails in heat, fails in traffic, and could fail at the worst possible moment, this weekend in Austria. And the team leading the championship already knows it. Because here's the detail almost nobody is putting at the center of this story. In 2 of the last 3 races, the fastest car on the grid didn't lose because it was beaten on track. It lost because it broke. The championship leader was running second, 3 laps from the end, when his car simply shut itself down and rolled to a stop. And the reason why points to a weakness that gets dramatically worse in exactly the conditions waiting at the Red Bull ring. We'll come back to that because it quietly changes everything about what you're about to watch. But first, you have to understand what really happened in Spain because the official version is missing the most important part. On paper, it was a coronation. Lewis Hamilton won the Barcelona-Catalunya Grand Prix by 19.5 seconds, his first victory in Ferrari red, ending a 686-day wait for a win. He'd qualified within a tenth of pole. He'd nursed his tires through a bold 3-stop strategy. He timed a virtual safety car to perfection, took the lead, and then drove away from the entire field. For a driver who, just months earlier, had openly suggested Ferrari might be better off replacing him, it was a stunning, almost emotional reversal. But look closer at that 19-second gap, and the cracks start to show, just not in the car you'd expect. If you want the real picture of how this title race is unfolding, take 1 second to subscribe, because the next 2 months are going to be chaos. Here's where the championship actually stands. Kimi Antonelli, 19 years old, the driver who replaced Hamilton at Mercedes, leads with 156 points. Hamilton is second on 141 points back. George Russell sits third, another 9 behind that. And until Barcelona, Mercedes had won every single Grand Prix of the season. Every one. So how does a driver 41 points down, in a car that's been second or third fastest most weekends, suddenly become a genuine title threat? The answer is not the one Ferrari is selling you. Ferrari's version of the story is all about upgrades. In Barcelona, they brought a major aerodynamic package, 8 separate changes to the SF26, that closed the gap to Mercedes in a single weekend. And this weekend in Austria, they're going further still, introducing their first engine upgrade of the entire season. It's made possible by a brand new rule called a Duo Additional Development and Upgrade Opportunities, Formula One's catch-up mechanism for manufacturers who fall too far behind on raw engine power. Ferrari was measured by the FIA as more than 4% down on the benchmark engine, and that deficit earned them 2 upgrade tokens for this year. The first one lands right here, at the Red Bull ring. And this is where the hype machine went into overdrive. But here's where things get strange. Ferrari itself is desperately trying to calm everyone down. Their power unit director, Enrico Gualtieri, called it a relatively minor update that will not, on its own, change the competitive order. And the numbers back him up. The package is worth roughly 4 to 5 horsepower from the engine, plus another 2 or 3 from a new shell fuel around a single tenth of a second per lap at this circuit. Hamilton's own words were almost identical. He called the new engine a step, not the whole gap. 1 foot forward. So if even Ferrari is admitting the upgrade is small, why is the entire paddock suddenly whispering about Hamilton winning the title? Because the upgrade was never really the story. The real story is sitting on the other side of the garage. And there's a twist inside the rule itself that almost nobody noticed. The engine the FIA officially named as the benchmark, the standard everyone else is measured against, belongs to Red Bull, a team building its very first Formula One engine this year. Red Bull disputes it. They've asked the FIA to review the verdict, arguing the data doesn't show them ahead of Mercedes at all. Most of the paddock quietly believes the true benchmark is Mercedes, which means Ferrari might be chasing the wrong target on paper, while the real gap they need to close is the silver one. To attack it, Ferrari is doing something genuinely unusual under the bodywork, running its cylinders hotter than rivals, around 110 degrees, instead of 100, using a steel alloy cylinder head that can survive temperatures a normal aluminum engine simply couldn't. It's a clever, aggressive idea. But it's still only step one. The real blow is being saved for later, and we'll get to when. Now pay attention to this, because it's the part the headlines keep burying. Mercedes has a problem. A serious one. And it isn't about speed, it's about survival. George Russell was leading the Canadian Grand Prix, comfortably, when his car suffered what Mercedes themselves described as a catastrophic battery failure and stopped dead on track. 3 weeks later in Barcelona, Antonelli was running second and closing on the leaders when his Mercedes dropped into a sudden electrical shutdown, just 3 laps from the flag. 2 races. 2 leaders, 2 batteries, both gone. And it isn't only the works team. McLaren, who run Mercedes engines, had both cars fail to even start in China, and Lando Norris retired from Monaco with a battery problem of his own. This isn't bad luck. This is a pattern, and the driver at the center of it knows it. Antonelli later admitted the warning signs had appeared long before Barcelona trouble as far back as Miami practice, then Russell's failure in Canada, then his own. He was careful to make one point clear: his Barcelona problem wasn't just the heat. A component spiked in temperature and triggered the shutdown, but Russell's failure in Canada happened in much cooler conditions. And that's the detail that should frighten Mercedes most. If the same weakness can strike in the cool and in the heat, then the team can't simply manage its way around the temperature. The flaw is deeper than the weather. Toto Wolff didn't hide it. He called Barcelona a reality check and said the team couldn't afford retirements like this, repeating not in a year they're trying to win 2 championships. If this is the kind of behind-the-scenes story you wish more F1 channels actually dug into, hit subscribe. It genuinely helps us keep making them. But here's the detail that turns a reliability problem into a championship problem. Mercedes' own technical director, James Allison, admitted the failures all originate in the same broad part of the battery. And when their engineers traced why, they found something very specific. The battery overheats, and it overheats fastest in 2 situations. First, in high ambient temperatures. Second, when the car spends long stretches running closely behind another car, in dirty air, where the cooling effectively collapses. Now ask yourself one simple question. What kind of track is hot and forces cars to run nose to tail for lap after lap after lap? You already know the answer, and it's exactly where they're racing this weekend. This is the convergence almost nobody is talking about. The Red Bull Ring is one of the shortest laps of the entire year, which means the cars are permanently bunched together, permanently sitting in each other's wake. The forecast for the weekend is hot, and the circuit sits at altitude, the first real test of these new generation power units in thin air, where cooling is already harder than normal. In other words, Austria is almost a perfectly designed trap for the exact weakness Mercedes is trying to hide. In Barcelona, drivers were reportedly told to minimize the time they spent in another car's slipstream, purely to keep the battery alive. Imagine trying to win a Grand Prix while being told not to follow the car in front too closely. How are you supposed to overtake like that? And it gets worse for Mercedes. To protect that battery, reports suggest the team may have to turn their power unit down, deliberately surrendering the straight-line speed advantage that has defined their whole season. Think about the timing of that. Mercedes is being forced to slow itself down in the exact same week Ferrari is switching its engine up. One team is adding power through adduo. The other might be subtracting it just to survive. And that is the real reason this gap could close, not 1 curve rising, but 2 curves crossing. Remember that thumbnail you clicked? The line bending upward on the graph? This is what it actually represents. Not just Ferrari's speed, the collision of 2 trends almost nobody is watching together. Now run the math. The championship leaders are quietly running themselves. If Antonelli's battery fails again in Austria, and Hamilton wins, that 41-point gap collapses to 26 in a single afternoon. That's it. One more failure, one more Hamilton win, and a championship that looked completely settled becomes genuinely fragile heading into the summer break. And here's the part that should be keeping Mercedes awake. Those two retirements have already cost them around 43 points and visibly shrunk their lead in the Constructors' Championship. The cushion that looked enormous back in May is evaporating in real time. It's worth remembering how Hamilton even got into this position, because it wasn't one lucky Sunday. His first podium for Ferrari finally came in China, then a runner-up finish in Canada, then second again in Monaco, then the win in Barcelona, his best 3 consecutive results in red, building like a wave. Behind the scenes, he demanded change, new brakes, a new race engineer. He'd cut back on the simulator. He reshaped how the team worked around him. And then he found what he keeps calling a North Star, a direction, a reason to believe the climb is actually possible. We're going to be tracking every twist of this fight all season long, so if you're not subscribed yet, this is the moment to fix that. But there's a complication, and this is where Ferrari's own dream could turn against itself. Ferrari doesn't have one title contender. It has 2. Charles Leclerc now sits around 40 points behind his own teammate, trailing Hamilton in both the qualifying and race head-to-heads for the first time in his Ferrari career. So if this really does come down to the final races, who does Ferrari actually back, the 7-time champion chasing history, or the man they built the entire team around? Some former drivers are already saying it out loud. Prioritize Lewis. That decision hasn't been forced yet, but you can feel it coming. And remember that bigger blow Ferrari is saving? Here's when it lands. Austria is only the validation step. Ferrari's second, far heavier A2O upgrade built around a completely redesigned turbocharger is targeted for Monza after the summer break. Together, the 2 steps are reported to be worth around 30 horsepower. Against a total deficit believed to be roughly 40 to 45, they won't erase the gap. But they could shrink it enough to turn the second half of the season into a genuine fight. So the trap tightens from both directions. Ferrari gets stronger as the year goes on, exactly as Mercedes is forced to manage a weakness it hasn't fully fixed. If Ferrari closes the engine gap by Monza, and Mercedes is still nursing that battery, who would you bet on for the back half of this championship? There's also a human pressure building inside Mercedes that the numbers don't show. After Barcelona, Wolff reportedly made it blunt to his drivers, if they're ever under threat from a rival again like they were in Spain. Team orders come into play, the faster car gets priority. That's a team that can suddenly feel the floor shifting beneath it. 6 wins from 7, and they're already talking about locking the cars into formation to protect points. And there's one more layer most fans are missing completely. Mercedes isn't just sitting still and hoping. They're bringing an updated battery to Austria for Antonelli, the first of those new modules Allison promised. But here's the catch that tells you how serious this really is. Only one of their customer cars will get the upgraded part. The fix is so limited, they can't even hand it to everyone at once. Does that sound like a team that has solved its problem, or a team gambling that it's bought just enough time? By Sunday evening, we'll have the first real answer. And then there's the wild card nobody can control. The Red Bull Ring has a long history of championship contenders destroying each other. Rosberg and Hamilton collided on the final lap here in 2016. Verstappen and Norris tangled in 2024. Piastri nearly took out his own teammate in 2025. It's a short, aggressive lap with multiple overtaking zones, where one small touch at turn 3 can rewrite an entire title race in a matter of seconds. Put a fragile Mercedes, a charging Ferrari, and a blazing hot afternoon together on that track, and you have every single ingredient for chaos. So here's where all of it lands. The story you were told is that Lewis Hamilton simply got fast again. The story that's actually true is that Mercedes got fragile, and Austria is the one place on the calendar where that fragility could become catastrophic. Hamilton himself still won't even say the word title. Asked directly about an 8th championship, he deflected, insisting he only wants to win in Austria. One weekend at a time. But everyone around him is saying what he won't. Russell called Hamilton and Ferrari a huge threat. Even inside the Mercedes camp, they admit the momentum has shifted. The uncomfortable truth is that Hamilton's title chance was never fully in his own hands. A big part of it is sitting inside a battery module in the back of a silver car, and this weekend, in the heat and the thin air of Spielberg, that module faces its hardest test yet. So what do you think, is this the weekend the championship finally cracks open? Or does Mercedes find a way to hold the line? Because if that battery gives up just one more time, the tidy story everyone's been telling about 2026 falls apart completely. And the next chapter of it starts on Sunday. Tell me in the comments who you think takes Austria, and if you want to see how this actually ends, subscribe and stick with us. Because honestly, this is only just getting started.